How are you? Hello again. I didn't see you there. How are you? All right. Welcome to Chá Pedagógico. Is this the first time you hear the name Chá Pedagógico? This is the first time you hear this name, Chá Pedagógico. Who said no? You said no. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, my name is Rudy Machiello, and I am one of the co-hosts of a podcast called Chá Pedagógico. Okay? That's why we have a camera there, because this podcast is broadcast every last Sunday of the month on Disal's YouTube channel. Okay? And why am I the co-host? Because Andre Hedlund is the other host, but he couldn't be here today. He was here yesterday. Some of you saw him yesterday, but he couldn't be here today. So that's why he's there, okay? What's the podcast about? The podcast, we always talk about linguistics. We always talk about cognitive linguistics. We always talk about neuroscience. We always talk about education, of course. We always talk about pop culture. Always, okay? And if you're here because you want to see some slides on, I'm sorry. There's not going to be any slide. Yes, because that's too top down. So we're just going to chat about the brain, about the mind, about education, about reading, about language teaching, about teaching in general, and we're going to have fun. Because if you're not having fun, there's something really wrong with this. Okay? Yes? And please, at the end of this episode, the special episode of Chá Pedagógico, go to Disal's YouTube channel and you're going to find all the previous episodes. All of them. They're there. And we've been doing this for 7.5 years. So there's a lot of episodes. Yes, a lot. Okay? All right? And today, we're here to talk about the brain areas for reading. But I would like to start by telling you something that maybe can be kind of a neuromyth. We don't have specialized areas for single things. That's not how it works, okay? Our brain has a lot of areas. They do perform certain activities. Yes, they do. But the areas work together as a team, okay? So, right now, my brain is working. Yours is working as well. And how is your brain working right now? Well, you're having visual stimuli because you're seeing me, okay? Unless you're like me, then you're not seeing anything because I see some people are wearing glasses. You're having sound stimuli because you can hear me, okay? You're gonna have all sorts of other stimuli, physical stimuli, and also you're going to have a linguistic stimuli. So your brain is working as a whole, okay? But really, why did you put on the on the title, the two brain areas? Because we're going to focus on two specific areas, okay? But I would like to make this clear so you don't think, or you don't get out of this episode today, get out of the room and say, oh, I watched Rudy saying in one of the podcast episodes, and he said that every single brain area has a specific role. No. So this is just to clarify, okay? So, why reading? Before every episode, Andre and I, we get together and we design the episode. And 2 months ago, May was 2 months ago, in São Paulo, we have every year a very important event called BETCH. It's an educational event. And we were there. We also have another partner, not just Disal, but we also have another partner, Ciranda Cultural. They're a publisher, a big publisher. And they gave us a lot of books, a lot of things. And I said, whoa, we can do something here. We have something here. Why? One of the books that we got has only images. Only images. Only images. There's nothing written. Oh, my bad. It's not from Ciranda. The book is from Dark Side. Dark Side. You know that? Have you ever heard of this publisher, Dark Side? I'm sorry, Dark Side. And the name of the book is Sonhos. It's in Portuguese, yes. Sonhos. And the moment I showed this book to my daughter is 6 years old. She was like, oh, let's play with this, and etc. And I immediately called Andre. I said, hey, dude, there's something good here. Why? First of all, how are you going to read a book that has nothing written on it? You're not going to read it? Yes, you can. Why? Remember I told you that we receive a lot of stimuli, regardless of the activity that we're doing, we're performing. Okay, so when you open the book and you see a lot of images in it, the first area that is going to be stimulated or activated, if you want, is the occipital lobe. Where is the occipital lobe? Unfortunately, Andre is not here because he has Hannibal. What's Hannibal? His brain. The occipital lobe is this area of the brain. It's here, okay? In the back of your head, kind of. Why is that so important? Because when you see that information, automatically, this is going to either make you access your mental spaces. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Your mental spaces. And then your brain is going to try to find some concepts. Okay? Okay, let me go through that very briefly. What are mental spaces? Mental spaces are like a cloud. Okay? Like a cloud system that you have, that you upload your photos, your files, and etc. This is something that we do with our brains. Our brain is responsible for creating this cloud system called mental space. And every single thing we do, every single thing we learn, every single stimuli that we receive, we design concepts, we create meaning. Okay? So, when I see this object for the first time, imagining that I don't know what this object is, I'm going to have a visual stimulus, and I'm going to access my mental space. And I'm going to say, okay, this is the shape, this is whatever, in my mind. Then, where is the language in it? We use the language to give it a name. The world is responsible for doing that. Then the world is going to say, oh, this is a chair, or this is a desk, or whatever, in whatever language. So, the occipital lobe. Okay. But that's not it. We also need another area, the prefrontal cortex. What is the prefrontal cortex? Here. And it's the last brain area that we develop. The last one. The last one. We finish developing the prefrontal cortex when we are around 18, 20, 21 years of age. Yes, that's when we actually finish developing the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for judgments, responsible for associations, groupings, selections, and etc. Really, what does that have to do with reading? What does all of this have to do with reading in that book that has nothing written on it? Well, the idea is, when you are reading, you're going to receive visual stimuli by the words, by whatever is in it, okay? Do we need that in order to read? Yes, we do need that in order to read something. Do we need that to practice reading? Not necessarily. Why? Because the idea is to make your students, to make our students, to make kids, adults, whatever age they are, get a book, because it's important. Get a book. Open the book. And the idea, especially for that specific book that I said, Sonhos, they can generate their own texts. That's the whole point of it. They can generate that. By doing what? By making associations. Why associations? They are going to see the illustration, and then the prefrontal cortex is going to be activated with all the other areas. I told you that some minutes ago. All the other areas are going to be activated. And then, okay, now for this specific page or for this specific illustration, this is representing whatever. What is the language that I can use that represents this whatever? Unfortunately, I couldn't bring the book because, my daughter didn't let me actually. She said, I don't want to bring this book, Daddy. Okay. So they can design whatever is going to be written on the book. Okay? By doing what? As I said, prefrontal cortex. They are going to choose, okay, I want this chunk because this chunk is responsible for describing that situation, describing this kind of illustration. Oh, no. I don't want to use this kind of collocation. Why do I not want to use this kind of collocation? Because this collocation is not going to create the impact that I want. Simple as that. And when we're reading, do we have that? Yes, we do have that. I don't know the other way around now, okay? You're reading a regular book, things written on it, okay? And then you see, I don't know if this has happened to you, you see something written on a book, and then you say, I'm not sure if I understood this sentence. Even in Portuguese. Why does this happen? Not because you're not fluent, not because you're not proficient in Portuguese, but because that sentence, the person that chose that sentence, maybe is reaching some mental states, some concepts that you haven't developed yet. Yes, and then you say, this doesn't make any sense. That's not how it works. No, let me read it again. That's how it works. That's why we need to use the prefrontal cortex. That's why we use the occipital lobe. Just to give you a bonus, because I think I have a couple, 10 minutes or so. The frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, especially the left temporal lobe. Where is the left temporal lobe? Left, okay? Here, about 2 or 3 fingers over your ears. This is the temporal lobe. What's the temporal lobe responsible for? Semantics, meaning. So, basically, when you open a book and you read, you're going to activate your occipital lobe, you're going to activate your prefrontal cortex, you're going to activate your temporal lobe. Because you need to understand, you need to create meaning. Or this has to generate, or at least make some sort of impact in the meaning, in the concepts that you've already developed. Okay, hello. Hi. That's okay. That's fine. Should I start again? Do we have time? Because I was just given a notice that we have 10 minutes now. So, as I was saying, the temporal lobe is responsible for meaning. So basically, when you open the book and you are going to explore this brain area, you need to make not judgment, but you need to understand. It needs to have a meaning to you. That's why sometimes it may sound really weird, but that's why sometimes when you read a lot, regardless of the language, you have headaches. And that's why it's here. Because you are using your brain. Why? Because you need to make meaning out of what's written. Okay? All right. Do we need to explore this with our students? How can we explore this with our students? Basically, there's a simple answer. Have them read. This year, this is the 7th or 6th episode of Chá Pedagógico, but this year, every single episode is encouraging educators to have your students read. We don't see, here in Brazil, we have a very low number of readers here in Brazil. That's why we decided to talk about this in this 30, 35 minutes or so about reading. How do you do that, basically? How do you explore this with your students? Do we need to go super technical with our students talking about the brain and stuff? No, you don't. No, you don't, okay? You don't need to tell your students, oh, please read, because if you read, you're going to activate your prefrontal cortex, and you're going to activate your occipital lobe, and this is going to be good. No, don't do that. They're going to look at you like, what? What are you talking about? Don't do that, all right? So the idea is focus on whatever reading exercise you have. Focus on that, okay? This is the beginning. It's not necessary to focus on number of pages. I don't recommend you do that. Why? Maybe they're not interested. Maybe they don't want that, okay? Maybe they want that, but maybe, especially teenagers, they're going to be like, but my friends don't like reading, and, I'm part of this panelinha, and, I don't want to embarrass myself. No. And very important as well, don't start with your big guns, okay? Let's read Machado de Assis. I'm not saying he's not good. No, he's perfect. He's one of the best writers we've ever had in Brazil. Let's read Clarice Lispector. Yeah, but remember I told you, we also use our left temporal lobe in order to make meaning, in order to understand things. Do you really think a book that was written, I don't know, 150 years ago, maybe more, 200 years ago, do you really think that this book is going to have any kind of impact in this TikTok generation? Really? Do you really think they will understand? Even if they have only the left temporal lobe in their brains? No. We're not going to have an impact. At all. At all. Do we need to use Machado de Assis in the classroom? Clarice Lispector, yes. Cecília Meirelles, yes, we do. It's important. Make a connection. Make a connection. It's necessary to have this connection. They love TikTok. Kids nowadays love TikTok. Okay. Maybe you're going to find some sort of subject in the TikTok or in whatever social media we have out there that are interesting to them. Interesting. And then you say, ooh, okay, this is very interesting. Guys, do you know that there is a book that was written 150 years ago with a similar topic? Really? Then they are going to make this connection. They are going to make this connection. And they're going to be like, oh, okay, now I want to see what was written 150 years ago that has any sort of resemblance with what's being talked about in TikTok today. It is important. It is very important that you do that. I'm saying this also with experience. When I started teaching, I'm not going to say how many years ago. I'm not going to say. No. But when I started my career as a teacher, I made the same mistake. Okay, let's read, not Machado de Assis, let's read Shakespeare, let's read Chaucer. We want this because it is cool, it's nice, it's beautiful, and it's crafted, it's really cool. Nah, didn't work. I was just the beginning. I didn't know anything about the brain. I didn't know how things worked. I was just in the beginning of my college. I didn't have a master's degree back then. I wasn't a PhD student back then. I had nothing. Of course I made mistakes. But then, with time, studying, doing some researches here and there, then I said, oh, okay, this was wrong. So I don't want other educators to make the same mistake as I made, because that's not going to work. Because students are not going to have a connection. They're going to use their left temporal lobe for what? To make meaning. And then their left temporal lobe is going to have the error message you have on the laptop, 404, I guess, the error message, 404, or the famous in Portuguese, tela azul. Their left temporal lobe is going to have a tela azul. That's what's going to happen. Why? Because again, back in the beginning, the mental space, it's empty. They didn't create that space. But they do have a space very well developed and designed for topics that are there. Dancinha do Paquetá, I don't know, Minecraft, depending on their age. Yes. So use that. That's an ally to us. Use that. Oh, there's a Minecraft. Okay. Is there any kind of connection between Minecraft and, I don't know, Shakespeare? Maybe there is. It doesn't have to be Minecraft. Maybe it can be, you know, I'm a super nerd. Super. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm wearing a C-3PO socks. Yes, it's yellow. My daughter said, Daddy, wear the yellow socks. Yes, it's a C-3PO. It's a Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars fan. Is there a connection between reading and Star Wars? Yes, there is. There is. Why? I don't know if you know that, but Star Wars was supposed to be a book, not a film. It wasn't supposed to be a film. It was supposed to be a book. But someone told, oh no, George Lucas, let's make a movie out of that. And he said, are you sure? Yes. Okay. And they made a movie and the rest is history. Okay? Why is there a connection? I bought the book. There is a book. Yes, and I bought the book. The first 3 films, not in the sequence, but the first 3 films, there is a book. I'm reading them. I know every single page because I know every single scene of all the movies and all those things. And even though I know the films, when I turn the page and I read Luke Skywalker, there is a description of Luke Skywalker. It's different. It's as if I'm seeing a new character. Why? I designed a mental space based on the film. I created a mental space. I have a concept of Luke Skywalker. And when I read the book, I was like, oh, really? So that's Luke Skywalker? Really? So I used my left temporal lobe. I used my occipital lobe. I also used my prefrontal cortex. Why did I use my prefrontal cortex? Because I needed to make an association. I made an association between what was written with my concept, with what I knew about Luke Skywalker. You know? So, and then I was like, oh, but, okay, so maybe Luke Skywalker was supposed to look like this. But they made some changes when they were filming. I don't know. There's no reason for that. So, again, find connections. It is really important that you find connections. But more importantly, have your students read. They have to read. It's really, really important. Okay? And before I wrap up, and before Vini comes here and kicks me in the butt, again, for those who have just arrived, Chá Pedagógico is a podcast. It's on Disal's YouTube channel. So again, thank you, Disal. We also have a partnership with Ciranda Cultural. Thank you again to Ciranda Cultural. And you can find previous episodes there. We talk about linguistics, cognitive linguistics, education, as I just told you, pop culture as well. And the episodes are longer. We normally speak for 65 minutes, 70 minutes. Andre was supposed to be here, but he wasn't. He's not. And yes, so if you have a chance, go there, subscribe to the channel. There is a section called podcast. If you click there, you're going to see the previous episodes. It happens every last Sunday of the month. So this recording is going to be available at the end of this month. So maybe, sister, maybe when? Okay, so in a couple of weeks, though, this episode is going to be there. And as I know this episode is short, I'm sorry about this. So if you want to see maybe a longer version, I'm out here, I'm out there. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the event. And I'll see you when I see you. Thank you, guys.